Imagine having a little piece of the ocean in your living room. A reef alive with beautiful fish and colorful corals, all thriving in a system you built yourself. That is exactly what today's story is about. We're taking a deep dive into the Midnight Reef, a 250-gallon custom saltwater aquarium that started as a simple gift and turned into a lifelong journey of pursuing a dream. This is just one of the aquariums I visited on my recent trip to New York City. Later on, we'll also explore the world's largest private home aquarium, a 17,000-gallon reef tank with live coral. If you're new to saltwater aquariums, don't worry. I'll explain things in simple terms so you can follow along and maybe even get inspired to start your own reef one day. If you enjoy seeing reef tanks like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. Without further ado, let's get started. The owner of this reef grew up surrounded by freshwater aquariums. His dad kept at least half a dozen tanks filled with fish of every shape and size. Saltwater aquariums though, that seemed completely out of reach. Almost like science fiction. But in 2010 everything changed. After moving into a new apartment in Brooklyn, his wife surprised him with something he had only dreamed about, a saltwater aquarium. But it came with one condition. It had to have live coral. Following a consultation at the local fish store, they set up a custom-built 90-gallon aquarium, filled it up with live rock, and started adding fish and eventually corals. But like many beginners, they quickly realized how hard reefing can be if you lack the basic knowledge of saltwater aquariums. The fish thrived, but the corals didn't survive that long. For nearly a decade, the tank became what's called a Fowler system, which stands for fish only with live rock. Fast forward to 2020, New York City was in a lockdown and like many of us, the owner found himself glued to YouTube. He discovered reefing channels, learned new techniques and got inspired again. At this point, only two fish remained from the old tank, a blue tang and a yellow tang. Both had been living in the tank for over 9 years, and believe it or not, the yellow tang is still alive today. 15 years strong. But there was a huge problem. The water had nitrate levels of over 150 parts per million. For beginners, nitrates are waste products from fish and food that can poison a reef. To put it into perspective, the local fish store said, no creature should be able to live in that. And yet, the yellow tank lived through it all. At this point, the owner went all in. He installed a sulfur denitrator, revamped the sump, grew macroalgae, and removed old rock that was trapping nutrients. These are all techniques to remove excess nitrates from the aquarium. Over the course of a year, nitrate levels dropped to a safe level around 25 ppm, and the first batch of corals was added. They didn't just survive, they thrived, and that was the turning point. With corals finally growing, the family decided it was time to level up. They moved out of the apartment and into a house. And the new centerpiece will be a custom-built 250-gallon peninsula aquarium, designed by the owner himself. He went for a peninsula-style aquarium so it could serve as a room divider in their new home, giving an uninterrupted view of the reef from 3 directions. The display is 6 feet long, nearly 2.5 feet wide, and 2 feet tall, fully made of glass. It's paired with a 45-gallon sump below that houses all the filtration. The plumbing? Completely do-it-yourself, and it works beautifully. Now here's a quick rundown of the tech he is using to keep this tank stable and maintain it. I'd say this is quite unique, but he does daily automatic water changes on this system. About 2.5 gallons every night to be exact. He uses a roller mat instead of filter socks, which makes filtration way easier by filtering the small particles out of the water. When using filter socks, you have to replace and clean them quite often, but a roller mat automatically cleans itself by rolling out a new piece of fabric once it's become saturated with waste. To poo the organic waste from the water, he uses a powerful protein skimmer. As we talked about earlier, high nutrient levels like nitrates and phosphates can be quite dangerous and challenging for a reef. To combat this and keep the levels manageable, he uses carbon, GFO filter medium, macroalgae mangroves, and of course, that trusty sulfur denitrator. There are dosing systems that deliver kalkwasser, calcium and alkalinity to keep the corals growing. For lighting, the tank runs 4 Aqua Illumination 32 HDs, multiple Reef brights, and 4 Kessel 360X lights. Together they create a blanket of light that mimics the sun. Intense but gentle, full spectrum, and perfect for coral growth. For flow, which is probably the most important part of this system, that was a whole separate challenge. At first he installed some smaller pumps, but they blew the sand all over the place and left many dead spots where flow just doesn't reach. Eventually, the upgrade to Ecotech MP60s created a kind of dynamic, ever-changing flow patterns that corals love. If you're impressed so far by the design of this system, make sure you hit the like button, and if you want to see more tanks like this one, subscribe so you don't miss out on the next deep dive. We've also got a lot of projects coming up at home, so there's a ton of aquarium inspiration for you to enjoy very soon. Transferring everything from the old 90-gallon tank into the new 250-gallon wasn't easy to say the least. It was like doing a massive water change overnight. The new sand caused bacterial imbalances and several corals were lost. The tank went through months of cyanobacteria outbreaks and bubble algae. But instead of rushing to fix things, the owner stayed very calm. His motto, the 3 P's: patience, persistence, and perseverance. Eventually, things balanced out themselves, and about a year later, the system hit its stride. Stable, thriving, and beautiful. Today, the Midnight Reef is home to a wide variety of life. You'll find tanks, wrasses, angelfish, clownfish, chromis, and even butterfly fish. Inverts like shrimp, starfish, clams, and snails help keep this tank clean as well. And of course, the corals, they are beautiful. SPS, LPS, soft corals, mushrooms and zoanthids. This guy keeps all kinds of corals and it's a really nice reefscape. Feeding is just as carefully planned. Nori sheets in the morning, 5 cubes of frozen food at night, pellets 3 times a week, and weekly broadcast feeding for the corals. The result? Healthy fish and explosive coral growth. So what are the biggest lessons he has learned after more than a decade of reefing? First, invest in stability. Equipment like the denitrator and the Apex controller have been game changers for him. The Apex system even allows for remote monitoring and automatic water testing, which means no more guessing at critical parameters like calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. Second, don't panic when things go wrong. Reef tanks take time to stabilize. The worst thing you can do is overreact and make constant changes. And the final lesson is to surround yourself with inspiration. The owner credits reefers like Sam Parker and Devin Rich for sharing their builds and offering advice that helped shape this very system. In the end, the Midnight Reef is more than just an aquarium. It's a story of learning, of trial and error, and of never giving up on a dream. For anyone thinking of starting their own reef, the advice is simple. Do your research, take your time, and remember the 3 P's: patience, persistence, and perseverance. If you want to help make these videos possible and inspire yourself with more reefing content, consider becoming a member on Patreon.